Hello and welcome. We're admiring how nice this picture of this home looks in the background while we're waiting to get started. But welcome to our Retirement and Wealth Strategies webinar series. I'll be your host and moderator for the day. I'm Nicholas Scarcella, Vice President of RWS. Today we'll be focusing on the housing market, the challenges and outlook. And with our presentation, it'll be from our trusted partners, Don Russell, Senior Loan Officer of Union Home Mortgage, and Bartley Patterson, Real Estate Agent and Broker Manager of RE/MAX Classic. We have about 45 minutes of prepared content and Q&A throughout the presentation. So emphasis on this webinar, we do want this to be very interactive, and we're tailoring the content that you want to hear throughout. So please share your questions. Before I welcome Don and Bartley, I want to share a brief introduction of RWS. Then I'll hand the presentation over to our panelists for their introductions. Retirement and Wealth Strategies, we're a fiercely independent wealth management firm with over 35 years of experience, being established in 1985. We do have 17 office locations with our home office in Farmington Hills, Michigan. Collectively, with our 32 financial advisors, we serve a little over 7,000 households throughout the country. With this, we'd like to next share our mission statement. Our mission is to be a comprehensive financial services firm with a team atmosphere centered around family values, which leads us to our core values. And our core values we look at as what guides the client experience and our commitments to you as our clients. So education, trust, relationship, and compassion, and finally, competency. First, education is what we're doing here today. It's our commitment to educate our clients, be a resource, and also to the communities we serve. Trust, we earn your trust, never abuse it, always have your best interest first. Next, we pride ourselves on our friendship and building a relationship with multi-generations. So working with the children and the grandchildren, or your parents and your grandparents. That's important to us and something we pride ourselves on. Compassion, this is our patience and understanding to your evolving needs and circumstances. And finally, competency. It's our duty to be experienced, credentialed, knowledgeable, and have the right resources for you as our client. Housekeeping, then we'll bring Bart and Don on next. Everyone's camera is off and microphones are muted since this is a Zoom webinar. So if you're eating dinner, yelling at your dog, don't worry, we don't hear you or don't see you. Please ask all your questions, Q&A live throughout the presentation. So please send us your questions. The way you do so is by texting us. The phone number is on the next slide, as well as the footer of all the other slides as we share. The webinar is being recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. So if you want to rewatch this presentation or share it with a friend or family member, please do so. We also do have all of our previous webinars recorded and posted on our YouTube channel. Finally, please feel free to complete the form, the survey form at the end. This is how we're continuing to tailor and make our webinars better for you. This is the phone number, 833-797-4636. If you want to text us to say hi real quick so it's saved. Otherwise, it'll be on other slides, but please text your questions or anything you want to hear or ask our panelists throughout. With that, first up, we have Bartley Patterson with RE/MAX. Bartley and Don, if you want to come on. Hello, Bartley.
Hey, Nicholas, how are you today?
Real well, thank you. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me here today.
We're happy to have you both. If you want to start, Bartley, first with a little overview on yourself, your experience, what your role is.
Sure. So I've been in the real estate business now 28 years. Been at RE/MAX and RE/MAX Classic my entire career. Like you, I believe a lot in education, and I don't think that our job as realtors are salespeople. We are educators. We're here to educate them on what's going on in the market and helping them make their best financial decision in the process. So real estate has been an interesting career for the 28 years. I carry 21 advanced designations and certifications. And so after my name, you see something called a PhD. I've used that as a little marketing twist, but it stands for Professional Housing Degree, because like you, I feel that I need to know everything about what's going on in the marketplace to better serve my clients. So RE/MAX Classic is a company of 6 offices and about 140 agents, and it has been very successful.
Great. Thank you, Bart. And
Yep.
we're looking forward to your presentation from our rehearsal. Looks like it's gonna be very interactive and we're all for a treat. So we'll
Yep.
get to you after Don's introduction. You'll be up first, Bart, but Don, welcome and thanks for joining.
Hi, Nicholas. Hi, Bart.
Hello.
Thank you for having me. How you doing?
Absolutely. It's a great day. So we're excited to have you here, Don. If you want to just kind of share a little overview of yourself also to kick it off.
Sure. I've been senior loan officer in the mortgage business for 30+ years. And I work for Union Home Mortgage. We're a direct lender with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and Ginnie Mae. And we have approximately 1,400 employees. And we do business in just about every state in the country. And I just want to thank you for having me.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. Well, Bart, if you are, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. My understanding is we're going to start with sharing your screen now.
Okay. Great. Well, I did a couple things. Let me just pull mine up here. There we go. So you should see some graphs and things on the screen at the time. And I thought we would talk a little bit about what's going on in the marketplace here locally. I think that's really the key of what we want to talk about, and some of the trends and things that have happened. Obviously, these last couple of years have been different. I don't think I've seen a market this strong on the seller side in the 28 years I've been in the marketplace. And it's great that Don's here too, because you know, the interest rates are playing a factor in what's happening in the marketplace. They're both working along with the limited inventory we have and the higher interest rates that we have in driving these you know, dynamics of overbidding on houses and things of that nature. It's a market that has not been around. It's been very creative the last 2 years in putting together offers. From that perspective, I think it's really important to understand when you're working with, and one of the challenges we have in the marketplace is we really need to have somebody who's experienced in the market, can understand the complications that are going on, have a mortgage rep that is available to help us in the process, because there have been times this past 2 years where we've seen offers and there's 70 offers on a house.
Wow.
And we're competing. Yeah. So we're, you know, it's not just 2 or 3, it's 70. And we're not talking about $400,000 or mansion houses. This is a $150,000 house, and we've got 70 offers on it, over asking price, escalation clauses, appraisal guarantees, this, that, and the other thing. And so you need someone that's really putting together a strategy on that process. There's a time that you walk away. It's an investment, whether it's your own personal property that you're going to live, or you're using it as part of an investment portfolio that you're creating. You need to have that knowledge, and both your real estate agent and your mortgage person need to have that conversation and be able to talk together, because we need to know how to craft the offer the right way so that we can get it. You know, people say, I go in, I'm 20% approved, 20% down, and you know, I'm good to go. My credit scores are 800, whatever that happens to be. And that's not going to get you the deal. We might have to go in at 5% down because you need the extra cash to be able to do the appraisal guarantee because of all the other factors. So we need to be, it's a strategy. It's not just write an offer. So that's a real challenge. That's number 1 on the list.
Bartley, if I could chime in real quick, and I bought a home about 2 years ago, and one of the conditions I had to put in that was allow the seller to live in the home for about 4 months. And in that interim, as during summer, we also did pay for and do all the lawn care for the house while she was living in the home. I was like, wow, this is a sweet deal for her. So before we hand over to Bartley, anything to add to that, Don, on the competitiveness and the creative offer structure? I'm sure seeing a lot of the same.
Absolutely. Multiple offers, appraisal guarantees. They're still there. In my markets, I'm seeing it's not as heavy as it was, but I had two today, and they both have multiple offers. So it's highest and best, and they're offering higher than the sales price. And one of them's 220,000, and the other is like 415. So
Wow.
that's kind of in the sweet spot.
Yeah, it's a crazy market. I just closed on a property today. We listed it at 525. It sold for 562 cash.
Wow.
With an escalation clause. Obviously, cash avoided the appraisal issues. You know, no concessions whatsoever. Did a information only kind of an inspection. So you know, it's one of those things. And you're right, Dominic, or yeah, Nicholas, I'm sorry. There's so many things that are being included, such as the occupancy, such as and your lawn care. That's you know, you got to think about that. That all plays into the factor of what's coming out of your pocket at the end of the day. Yeah, so big difference. The graph I've thrown up here on top is just showing a couple minor things. And one thing we have to think about is, again, one of the other challenges is with the market making the moves that it's making in the pricing strategies, we're finding that median homeownership cost has actually risen about 20%. It's up to about $117,000 of annual estimated income that they need in order to be able to own a home. That's taking a lot of first-time homeowners out of the ballpark because they don't have those kinds of numbers, you know, necessarily. So it's putting a lot of pressure on them. They're having to come in with the FHAs or the 3.5%. VA is a great option if you've got that opportunity. Because again, you can come with zero down and do 100% financing. And today I just saw something come across my desk that the Fannie and Freddie raised the limits again on conventionals, right? For 30 years. We went from like 730 to like 766. I mean, that's jumping way up there. We're now getting into what used to be jumbos 5-6 years ago. So, you know, this is just an indication of what's happening in the market. All of the economists are saying that these are great things, but that's what's pushing these prices up so high for us. What you see in front of you right now is just a cycle of the median sales price over everything that's been reported through the MLS. Now, I did just a 10 or a 5-year. Let's do a 10-year look. So back in 2013, the houses that were averaging in a median price was about $85,000. When today we're up at $243,900. Now, just from year over year or month over month, we're at about 3.8% increase. But that's a huge thing, and that's over all price ranges. We can break this out even further if we looked into, let's say, Wayne County or Oakland County. We could compare them and have that statistic for us as well. We also want to look at, you know, the month supply. That means how many homes are for sale. So if we just click on the same thing within the MLS, this is showing you that downward spiral that we've seen where back in 2013, again, we had over 70,000 homes on the marketplace. Today, less than 20,000. And that's covering everything that's in this local Michigan market here. So that's a huge, you know, drop, 50,000 homes, while we're expecting to see a bigger increase in the building next year and the amount of inventory on there, it's still only down to like 3 or 4%. So that's a big difference as well.
It's incredible. The swing is just,
yeah,
it really makes you think, you know, what's going to fix this. Don, real quick, could you just speak to the FHA limit and what a jumbo is, just for our audience? What is a jumbo loan? What does that mean?
So a jumbo loan, basically another term for jumbo loan, is a non-conforming loan. And what that means by definition is that the loan amount does not conform to the conventional Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac limits. Once you get over that limit, it becomes a jumbo loan or non-conforming loan. So FHAs has a lower limit than conventional. You know, as Bart said, the conventional limits are much higher. But we find the difference between the two. We like to use FHAs if we can't get approved, number one, with a conventional loan. The credit scores are a little bit lower. I've seen in the past, you know, in the past 18 months to 24 months, it's tougher to get a conventional loan approved. your credit scores are a little bit tougher. And just the characteristics of the loan are a little bit tougher than they used to be. So FHA is a real good option for some people if their credit scores or they have something unique in that situation.
And thank you for that, Don. And Bart, handing it back over to you, I screenshot this article over the weekend, and I was kind of laughing in my head leading up to our webinar today. The title is "The U.S. Housing Market Has Become an Impossible Mess. Americans with cheap loans don't want to sell. People without homes can't afford to buy, and it's not getting better." So I'm really interested in you two as panelists weighing in on that and what your thoughts are. Is it getting better? Is 2024 something to look forward to?
So it's interesting because I didn't see that particular article, but I did see something else that I attended on Monday. And I'm going to share I'm going to drag this other screen over here so you can see this information. This is just a quick thing, and I'm not going to steal anything of yours, Don, for numbers or mortgage rates. But what was interesting out of this concept was the last 5 decades broken out, in the 10-year cycle, the average is about 7.38%. Okay. We're there right now, but look at the numbers that have gone over the years here. And again, back in 2010, 4.09. So if you average these, we're all right about 7.2, 7.25% here. Whereas right now, today, when this was snapshot, we were at 7.38 on the numbers for the average mortgage rate. So we're not out of the question. Now, there were times back in the 1980s, I remember, when those mortgage rates were 18 or 19%, and people were still moving, people were still doing, certain things. The other thing that was interesting is because of the mortgage rates and because of what you said, Nicholas, that people have better rates, we're seeing people staying in the houses longer. The average used to be about 6.1. You can see that back here from 1985 to 2009. And in 2010 to 2022, it's jumped up to about 9.5, 9.3 years. So that's a pretty significant number. The other thing that was very interesting was 70% of the mortgage rates are less than 4% of people who have mortgages out there. That's huge. Who wants to give that up? You're exactly right. Now, so the phrase flying around the real estate market right now is love the house, date the rate. Okay. And what that really means is that you love the house and you buy it even if it's at 7 or 8%. And obviously rates will come down. And there are some projections of that. And I'm going to share that for you here in a second. And I'm sure Don has some other information as well, probably more specific than mine. Mine's very general. That are showing it, you'll refinance at that time. But if you love the house, don't wait. That's the key, because you're not going to be able to find it again. Someone else will own it, not you. The other thing that was interesting is 68.7% have paid off their mortgage or have at least 50% equity in the house. Those are 2 huge things. You need to be using that equity, obviously, for other purposes. But we're finding that over 50% of the market right now is being purchased via cash. That money's coming from 401s, self-directed IRAs, however they're doing it, but they're coming up with the cash. And it's not brown bag cash. So that's a huge statistic as well. And this last slide that I'll share with you that we saw that day, and I did some screen captures myself, was the discussion about where are we projected for 2024 on mortgage rates. And it's probably going to be down somewhere in the 5 to 6 range is what's anticipated. Most of the economists have spoken about that. How accurate, again, if we all had wizard hats and a Swami, crystal ball, we'd probably all be much more wealthy than we are, but we don't have that information right now. So,
wow, incredible statistics. I mean, just looking at the decades at a time and the average interest rate, I guess the only thing I'd like to overlay on that would be what were the inventory levels, because sometimes rates are manipulated up or down to control the overall economy. Right now, it is our inventory levels what I keep going back to.
Yep.
Don, this is probably a great opportunity for me to share a few slides that you wanted to
Sure.
share. Let me share my screen and we can
Let me
go
undo
through
mine
those.
here. Yep.
Then we can hand it back over to you, Bart, with your interaction.
No, we're good. Yep.
No, this is great content. So Bart or Don,
Okay.
interest rates. Where
Yeah, I
are we?
mean-
Where are we going?
Yeah, Bart really hit it well. So we're looking at rates today that we had 20 plus years ago. And to give you an, I looked at our average rate today is 7.29 on a 30-year fixed. And last week it was 7.44. So we are trending down, and we've been going that way for the last 10 to 14 days. Last year it was 6.6%. So that is a big difference, but then the long-term average is 7.74%, real close to where Bart was saying. So, we're actually below that long-term average, but it's just that huge amount of people that have that rate below 4% or even below 5%, that really puts a hold on moving forward with a new purchase when, rates are where they are.
So Don, you have a client that loves the house, wants the house. They're gonna be as competitive as they need to purchase the home, and they plan on staying there for a long time. What does it mean to buy down their rate? And are you advising that for clients to buy down their rate to be closer to 7 or in the 6s? Is that even possible, or what do you advise?
It is possible, especially when you have a larger loan amount. So the larger the loan amount, is going to make a bigger difference on the interest rate with those discount points. They're called discount points because they discount the rate. And I'm a little hesitant if you need to buy down the rate to qualify. You need to buy a house and you need to qualify, and you don't qualify at the current rates, we need to buy them down. Unfortunately, we're not going to get any help from the seller typically, because they're not paying concessions. They're not going to kick in any money. And unless the third party, the buyer can only pay so many points, otherwise it becomes a high cost mortgage. So, but if you need to buy the rate down to a certain degree, then do it. But, like Bart mentioned, date the rate, because, the rates are going to come down and you can refinance. The thing you got to worry about is when people are waiting and they're not buying, is prices keep rising. With limited supply, prices are rising. They're looking to go up 10, 12%, depending on your market. In the next year, you wait a couple of years on your average $30,000, $300,000 house. You're $50,000 plus you're paying for that house in price. Maybe it costs you $10,000 to carry that higher rate over that next 2 years. And that probably is high. It's more like $6,000 on that $300,000 home. And you're way ahead because you didn't sit and wait for rates to come down, because prices aren't listening to that. Prices are due to the supply.
So that kind of goes to a question we commonly hear from clients is, should I buy now? Should I wait to buy? Are you waiting for prices to come down, interest rates to fall? So would your advice, it sounds like, would be do not wait to buy the home if you qualify for and you like the home?
Absolutely.
Or if your situation deems going from renting to buying, or your first time home buyer.
For sure.
So qualifications, I agree. Don't ever get over your skis on any type of debt or any your base living expenses, your budgetary, have your emergency fund. Make sure you're saving also as a priority and not just buying a expensive home. But what is qualifications? Is it debt to income, and what is that ratio as a rule of thumb?
So the debt to income ratio as a rule typically was 28% and 36. That's how it's always been. 28% for your housing expense, 36% for your total housing expense, plus your reoccurring debt. Reoccurring debt could be car notes, installment loans, and revolving credit card debt. The number really on the back end, if you have good credit with a conventional loan, is 45%. We can go a little bit higher on a case-by-case basis. It just depends on the other strengths and compensating factors for the individual. FHA, we have a little bit higher debt to income ratios. Again, it just depends on the situation.
Thanks, Don. And we actually did have a question come in, which I'm happy about. It coincides with one of our slides. Down payment requirements. And Bart, you did touch on this. 0% down. I know, Don, we have a slide here. Why rent when you can buy? You want to speak to that?
Sure, sure. So, like Bart said, there's VA loans out there that are 0% down. There's USDA rural loans that are 0% down. But when it comes to a conventional loan, the minimum down is 3%. And we have a new program. It just came out in the last 10 days that we're actually donating up to 2% or $4,000 maximum towards the down payment on the Fannie Mae Home Ready First Time Home Buyer Program. So that really gives that little extra boost to that first time home buyer. And also those funds can all come from a gift from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa. But so you can actually get in for that 1% down. Typically, depending on the loan amount, it's going to be a little bit under 2% because of that $4,000 cap. But it gives you a benefit of the down payment. And on that Home Ready program, you're going to get a break because the PMI, that private mortgage insurance, you have to pay when you don't put 20% down or more. That you get a break on that, like you're putting 10% down, and you're only putting 3% down. And then you're going to get a break on the rate. There's risk-based adjustments that occur on all conventional loans. And when you're putting less money down, that's a higher risk. So there's an adjustment to the rate. You're going to get a break on that too on this program. So that's a dynamite program.
And can you briefly touch on, but just the paper transactions concept or gifting in lieu of a down payment, probably most frequently use it with family members. Let's say there's a parents or grandparents that have investment properties or want to pass something on to another family member or a close friend. How does that work, Don?
So basically, you can have a gift of equity. So if you're buying a direct relative's home, for example, we just had one of our clients do it a couple weeks ago, and they're putting it together right now. The father's actually gifting the equity. The house is actually worth more than what they're selling it for, but the father has an amount that they need. So in this case, the amount was something like $140,000. And so we back everything off of there, and they get a gift of equity. It's right on the purchase agreement. It's basically a paper transaction, and that the new buyer is not coming out of pocket for that money, and the seller's a family member. They're helping out their family member, and they're passing along that property at a discount.
Incredible concept. It could be a win-win really for all members involved, which is great. And one other item, we work with you. We have had a long-term relationship with Don and Union, and something is using assets as income, and it helps with us being the advisors working with this concept. So what is that, Don? Using assets as income?
Well, we see a lot. I see a lot of it now in Florida where I do business. So what'll happen is just like our market here, it's even hotter down there. They're not taking any contingencies, so you can't buy your place. You may have a house in Michigan and you're moving to Florida and your house is free and clear. You want to move to Florida, but you only have maybe enough to put 10 or 20% down liquid. Then what we do is we actually qualify. We'll have you qualified on the 10% down. Now, a lot of my clients like that are on a fixed income. They've got qualified funds. They have plenty of qualified funds, so they can actually take a disbursement if they need an additional $5,000 or $6,000 a month. They can start a disbursement with their financial advisor, and we use that as long as they have 3 years continuance of that disbursement. We can use that as income, qualify them for their home. They buy the new place. They get their house in Michigan, for example. They get it ready to sell. They sell that property. So 60 days later, let's say they have their funds. Then all we need to do is do a recast. It's like a $250 fee with our company because we're going to service the loan. And if now they want to knock it down to their advisor advises them to have a $60,000 mortgage or a $70,000 mortgage, we just knock it down to there. We re-amortize the loan and it lowers the payment. So that way they were able to facilitate buying a house without a contingency and still qualify because they haven't been showing that income on their tax returns, but they've got the substantial qualified assets to qualify.
That's great. And just to clarify, qualified funds, we're speaking of like a 401k or an IRA, qualified
Yeah.
dollars to take that money out.
Retirement funds, absolutely.
While we're talking about down payments, then I want to hand it back to you, Bartley, after this question with Don, and speak to something you brought up, was the COVID changing the perception and the needs of homes for many people. And they sort of redefine what the home is for them and their lifestyle and their family. But Don, first, down payments, down payment assistance. We're talking a lot about first-time home buyers and whatnot. So I just want to kind of get this out of the way also as a good resource.
Sure. So in the state of Michigan, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, they actually will grant $10,000 as down payment assistance. It's a loan, but there's no interest on it. There's no payments. It's a lien on the property. You have to qualify. The property has to qualify. The buyers have to qualify based on credit. They have to qualify based on household income. So if there's others in the household, even working children, that goes towards that total amount to qualify. But it's a neat program. You've got $10,000 instead of tapping out all your money and you're buying your first home. You get some assistance from the state of Michigan and the taxpayers, and they allow you to purchase this. It's just a lien on the property, and you have to pay it back with no interest, and again, no payments, but whenever you sell the property or if it's not your primary residence. So if that property, all of a sudden you're going to move into another house 5 years from now and you want to rent that property, the minute it becomes a rental, you have to pay that $10,000 back to the state authority. But it's a great program.
That's great. So there's no amortization unless you sell or no longer your primary residence. Very good.
Absolutely.
What's the so let's go with how competitive the marketplace is today. Someone's interested in qualifying. How long of a process? You probably want to have all your ducks in a row before you start putting in offers on homes, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I would recommend you get pre-approved first and foremost. And then there's also an online course that we actually direct our borrowers to that's approved with the state of Michigan, and they get a certificate. So that's the real neat thing about the program is it actually educates borrowers, first-time home buyers. They learn how to budget. They learn about qualifying. They learn all these things that they have no clue about, and really makes their experience that much better.
Okay. And we do have one more, renovations and fixing up. This is something that's come up, and we actually had someone ask about this the other day. So slippery slope, you want to make sure you're always being conscious of loan to values and you know, your overall balance sheet as an individual. But what does this look like, Don? What's out there today?
So this is on a purchase or a refinance. The FHA 203K is the government insured program. The Fannie Homestyle is the Fannie Mae Homestyle program. What it allows you to do is you can either purchase. So we talk about a purchase. You can buy the house. Let's say, you know, it's tough to get a house. Like Bart was mentioning, there's multiple offers. Maybe you find that house that has the 1970s kitchen. Yeah, the bathrooms need updating. Maybe you want to put a pool in, and you want to add square footage. You can do all of that on the program. And what they'll do is you'll actually, so it's a little longer process than your typical purchase. Normally we're 30 days or less. I mean, every lender out there is less than 30 days typically if they have a clean deal. But because there's another process, getting a builder approved and making sure the builder's solid, we like to see 45, 50 days on our contracts to close. And they'll get plans and specs on doing the repairs that they want to do. The house is actually appraised as if those repairs are done. So once that, we are using that for the value. So if they're adding square footage, if they're, you know, those bathrooms, they're changing that quality of construction on the appraisal and they're improving it, that's gonna show in the value. And then they close. The seller gets paid. Everybody you know, commissions are paid, and they have 6 months to do the renovations, and then they can get an extension for up to 6 more months. So it could be a year. But that's on both programs. I mean, real similar. Another good thing with FHA as the 203K, again, we get a little bit more lenient. It's tougher. It's basically it's a construction loan for renovations, so it's tougher to get approved on a conventional loan versus an FHA loan in the automated underwriting system. So You're going to get a little bit more leniency with the FHA than you will with the conventional as far as qualifying, but they're both dynamite programs. They both work real well. And it's a great way if you're not going to, you can't buy right now, but maybe you've got an opportunity. You're in the house that you've been into for 4 or 5 years, and you can do these improvements. Number one, for your quality of life, but then 5 years from now, if you plan on moving, you've just built equity into your home. So that's more money you can put down on the house 5 years from now, because let's face it, they're going to be more expensive 5 years from now. So that's a great way to hedge.
Great point. Excellent. Well, Bartley, I'm going to hand it back over to you now with kind of addressing that, the changing perception and needs of homes and how you're seeing that affect sellers and buyers.
Yeah, COVID was an interesting change for us. Obviously, you know, we're always out in the community, showing the house, being in front of the customer. You know, they want to walk through it and things like that. We had to rely on new technology to help us be able to do the video tours and things like that. So from a seller's perspective, it changed the way we had to go through our listing. We had to pick up other technology. We started taking more videos and creating virtual walkthroughs. It won't be too long where we'll actually see virtual walkthroughs where we're actually putting on the goggles, and you're actually going to walk through a house 3D. You know, hopefully you don't run into any walls while you're doing it, but the fact of the matter, or break any TVs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you know, people come to the office and they'll be able to walk through from that perspective, even before they go out to take a look. But it'll mean we're doing different things in order to set that up from a marketing perspective, so people have that available. The buyer side, what was really interesting is you know, it was all focused on, I'll call it the amenities, the granite countertops, the quartz countertops, the hardwood floors, the open spaces. As COVID came in, we found people saying, I need more rooms. I've got to stop using the Cloffice, which is the closet office that got created during the COVID environment. Okay. Dad's home because he can't go to work anymore. He's got COVID, but he's on that 15-day quarantine or whatever it was at that point. The kids are out of school because they're quarantined, and they're all sitting at the kitchen table trying to do their work, and dad's making phone calls and the kids are having problems with homework, and it's just not working. So we saw another inquiry of, we need an office, we need other spaces. I need a finished basement where I can go down and work. They started saying, I want a larger yard, because obviously my kids can't run down the street anymore and play with all the other kids. So I want to keep my kids here. And then if this is something that was impacted dramatically, and it didn't even affect us, but pools have always been a long-term question mark about value for the perceived buyer. A client who has a pool in a house, usually when they say, oh, isn't my pool beautiful? I say, yes, it is. But it also limits the buying group, because there are people out there that say, I will not buy a house that has a pool. I don't want the maintenance. I don't want the upkeep. I don't want the liability. And all of a sudden, people wanted pools because, like I said earlier, the kids couldn't run down the street or go to the community pool. So everybody wanted to play in their own backyard. So if you look at the pool industry, for the last 2 years after COVID, they were booked solid. They sold out of every pool. So, the playgrounds in the back, the playscapes, things like that, they wanted those. That changed that process. They wanted to get out of the subdivision a little bit. They wanted, no more what we call the postage style stamp lot. They wanted a bigger lot, a little more room, so that people weren't on top of each other. It's been interesting.
It is. Total dynamic shift, I'm sure, for realtors, kind of changing the buying profile of clients you're working with.
Yep.
So, Bartley and Don, fun question. Zillow or Realtor? Which app do you like more? You guys use those apps? Or no?
Yeah, Realtor's going to be better. Look at Zillow and read their disclaimer about their Zestimate. They got out of buying homes and giving you a price for a reason. The numbers they
okay.
were giving you were totally wrong. So realtor's going to be better, and a real person that can do the analysis for you is far better.
Remax is best.
Well, just use a qualified realtor. Yeah.
Exactly right. Don, would
Yeah.
you say Realtor over Zillow as
Yeah.
well?
Absolutely. I'll defer to the expert for sure.
Yeah.
We rarely use Zillow and the other websites just because they're not so accurate when it comes to value. So
Yeah.
And I will say the most, as a consumer buying a home, what I am aware of is you work with a realtor, they'll put in the criteria and they'll send you active listings, whatever, something comes in that meets your criteria, and that's right from the MLS, and that's going to be the true source. And everyone's
Yep.
on the same page. So if you're really cool, and Don and Bart will both share a final checklist at the end, what some recommendations or suggestions for those prospective buyers. But you want to be already qualified and set up with your underwriter, pre-qualified with your realtor, knowing what your wish list is when you're seriously looking. Zillow and Realtor, though, I will say just the school district functionality. You can select a certain school or elementary school even, and it'll zone into homes that are nice within those that school system or district, or that actual school itself. Elementary school, maybe there's 7 in the city as in a whole. Amenities, tax history, different safety levels. I mean, it's impressive what they've built on those apps too. So still use it as a resource. With that, Bartley, do you have anything else you want to share on your screen?
I mean, I could go into more statistics if there were specific areas that they were interested in. I think one of the most important thing is again, if you're working with a qualified realtor that can do these kinds of things, these are the conversations you should be sitting down, especially if you're in that buying process. Sitting down with them and having a conversation, and they're going through it. I've had people come in, and I sit in one of my offices that I go to most often, and I worked in the Canton area quite a bit. So I have people come in and say, I want to buy a house here in Canton. I don't want to spend over $200,000. And, so you pull up the information and you say, well, let's look at what's available or what's sold for $200,000. And there's 3 homes in the past, year that sold at that price point. So again, talk about the person being qualified to give you the statistic that really has a handle on that marketplace. I think when we first sat down and talked about the concept for today's presentation, I shared with you that statistic about 72% of the marketplace will buy or sell their home with an agent that's only done 2 transactions. Yet this is the biggest financial decision you're making of your home. And it's not a house, it's a home. It's where your family is. It's where you're raising your kids. It's where you're creating all those memories. So it's got to be important, and it has to fit financially into the process. So do that with someone who can qualify and be, help you with that strategy, because it's not just fill in an offer. If it was, we'd go to Office Depot and buy a purchase agreement and fill it out and, send it over to the other person.
Great point. And two things that we have not touched on too heavily is what about retirees? Someone that's now looking at relocating or downsizing. It's a seller's market, but after you sell your home, you need to also buy a home. So how does that look? Any strategy there or insights on retirees, let's say, looking at downsizing?
Well, obviously, 2 things. First of all, there is a designation for that. It's called SRES. That stands for Senior Real Estate Specialist. And again, that's someone who understands that, we'll call it the Silver Surfer or the 55 and older group. Okay. And downsizing is an important factor, because a lot of times the home that they're living in is their nest egg. It's a part of their financial retirement plan. Okay. Again, look at the statistics we shared earlier. Almost 50% or more have 50% of equity in their house. So think about that. If they own the house outright, my parents did, when they were ready to move, they had all that equity available to them. That's a huge factor. And most of the time we're doing one of two things. We're either doing a condo because they don't want maintenance, they don't want upkeep. The only caution there is while the pricing might be less and the overall square footage is less, condo association fees continue to rise on a monthly or yearly basis. So be careful there. Again, do your homework, work with a qualified person there to give you the guidance on what you should be looking for. What's included in the maintenance? Some situations still require for you to do roof and windows and things of that nature. So, you know, those are additional expenses, especially as someone's downsized from the bigger home where they already assume that that's part of the process.
And contingent offers, what's your thought on contingent offers or contingent purchases or sales? In what order do they do that? How do they protect themselves from selling their house and not being able to buy a home or become homeless?
Yeah. So again, with the right person, there are ways of writing an agreement that says this offer, the acceptance of this offer, if they're the seller, they're going to say this offer, I would have to identify a property within 30 days to be able to do that. Sometimes they have the opportunity. And again, the discussion should be about, do they have a place to do a step? In other words, could they take and put their stuff into a pod or a moving van or sell off what they need and then move in with the son or daughter for, you know, a month and then move into their condo when it's available or something of that nature. So there are ways to do that. Is there a right way or a wrong way? No, it's a conversation that has to occur. So again, they know what the expectation is and which one fits best for them. Seniors are, the other part of it is sometimes they're going from their home to their final place, and it's a full retirement facility. So that's a whole different thing where there's additional care and so forth for them. An SRES designation will also be able to help the family if the family is a part of this downsizing process. Because most people, when they come in and they're making that move, and I've lived through this myself, so I'm well aware of the situation. You know, mom decided to get out of the home at the time. She was going into a retirement facility, but she needed additional care. So we had to worry about the trust and so forth. So I brought a whole team of people with me, it's not about just selling the real estate. It's about handling all the other things because the family doesn't know what to do with all those memories that are in the home. So we talk about estate auctions and things of that nature. If you can help families that way, that's a far better way of taking care of the entire process.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Don, I'm going to pull up a slide on recessions and housing markets and how they correlate or may not. But do you have any additions to that?
So still seeing the.
Oh, just it was my additional slide RWS put on is what I was going to talk through next. But anything to add to what Bartley mentioned?
Sure. So there are bridge loans that are available. So when someone, you know, needs to buy that purchase and they need to sell their house, they don't have to be homeless. As long as they qualify, we can give them a bridge loan, which is basically an equity loan on their existing home, and give them enough money so they can put down and buy their new place. And that bridge loan is not held against them in qualifying. So that's a nice way to make that transition from and not be homeless or have to go live with your kids or something. That's one aspect. And another point too was when it comes to getting, you know, make sure you're qualified. And Bart said, make sure you're dealing with a professional. Another thing when it comes to a lender, first thing people ask is what's your rate? And believe me, the mortgage experience is the rate is one spoke in the wheel, and there's a lot more spokes that are there. So you really, the rate is an important factor without a doubt. But that mortgage experience, you can go online and look at reviews of people that have a poor mortgage experience. They got promised a great rate, maybe they didn't get it. They didn't get a good experience. The communication level is very poor. The organization that they're dealing with, unlike mine, you know, we are veterans, we're professionals, and we earn referrals. So I don't advertise. I'm strictly referral based. I call on people like yourselves to earn that business. So just real important when you get pre-qualified, one of the questions is definitely the rate and cost, but there's other strategies that an experienced lender can look at your situation, and maybe there's a way to tap other money. Maybe we can go a little bit higher in the rate and give you a lender credit that could help bridge that, the purchase. And just another factor that if you're just looking at rate, you might miss an opportunity. So you don't want those opportunity costs.
Thank you, Don. Great point. And it all starts with getting pre-qualified, which is a fairly simple process, regardless of where you're at, which stage in life. Just make sure you're prepared and understand your situation. Here, we just want to bring this slide in, which looks at a few decades in the past, similar to Bart's slide. But recession doesn't mean falling home prices, or recession doesn't equal a housing crisis. So this graph here looks at the past 6 recessions, and you can see only 4 of the 6 have where homes actually appreciated. So 2008 was a recession, and that's something we still have kind of stuck in our head of housing market crash, recession being 100% correlated, which is not fully true. And then here we have a recession means falling mortgage rates. So in these past 6 recessions, in all situations, mortgage rates have declined. So many economists looked and called for a recession for 2023. There's discussions of a recession for 2024. This is defined by the GDP, or the overall productivity, and what the economy is doing in our country and globally. But 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth is a recession. So something to be cautious of is that a recession does not mean don't buy a home, or the world's coming to end, but just be an educated buyer. And that's again what Bart and Don are here for. So with that, we'd like to close highlighting our next upcoming webinars. We do have December off. January, we'll be back with a market and economic update. That's our quarterly webinar we do. We have Dr. Joanne Feeney, which is a treat. She's frequently on CNBC, Bloomberg, at Wall Street Journal. And then we have Antiques and Precious Metals, a strategic guide, in our February webinar. Again, here is Bart's information. I'll go to Don's next if you want to copy this down or take a picture. Thank you, Bart and Don. We really appreciate your time, your knowledge, and are thankful for our partnership and you guys being a great resource to our clients and our viewers. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Have a great day.
Yep. Thank you.
Happy holidays.